You are learning wrong and don't even know it. A study from Princeton discovered that a simple change in the way you take notes can double what you remember. Want to know what it is? Stay with me because this could change the way you learn forever. In 2014, Princeton University conducted a study on the best note-taking strategies and their impact on learning and information retention. The research involves splitting a class into two groups and assigning them different note-taking methods. The first group had to write in the traditional way by hand, using pens and paper. The second group, on the other hand, used electronic devices like laptops, cell phones, and tablets to take digital notes. At first glance, the second group seemed to have an advantage since, on average, they managed to take twice as many notes as the first group. Complaints quickly surfaced among the students in the first group. The task of writing by hand was slower, required more effort, and often led to hand cramps. In contrast, the group using electronic devices found the process more efficient and less tiring, which allowed them to capture and record more information. The main goal of this research was to identify which of the two methods was more effective in terms of remembering what was learned. So at the end of the semester, the researchers decided to conduct a final exam evaluation for all the students in the class. The results were surprising. Those who had taken notes by hand scored significantly higher than those who used computers. In fact, the grades of the handwritten group were twice as high compared to the other group. Initially, the researchers thought that perhaps the students who took notes by hand had made more of an effort to study after class. However, to confirm their hypothesis, they repeated the experiment 2 more times. In the first instance, the researchers evaluated the students right after class without giving them time to study. In the second instance, they conducted a surprise exam 1 week after the students had taken the notes. In both cases, the group that had written by hand achieved significantly better results than the group that had used electronic devices. This discovery led the researchers to formulate what could be called the effort principle. The central idea of this principle is that the more effort you put into learning or remembering, the easier it will be for you to retain that information long-term. It's a concept that holds great value in various areas, but is especially important in personal development, where the ability to learn and apply new knowledge effectively is crucial for success. One of the biggest challenges in personal development is information overload. Today, we have access to an almost infinite amount of resources such as books, podcasts, videos, and online courses. However, no matter how many resources we consume, it doesn't matter if we can't remember what we've learned, or worse, if we can't internalize that knowledge in a way that we can apply it in our daily lives. It's pointless to invest hours reading or listening if, in the end, we are unable to retain the key concepts. This is a very common issue, and many people feel frustrated when they realize that, despite consuming large amounts of content, they are unable to retain anything relevant long-term. I remember a personal experience that perfectly reflects this situation. At one point, I decided to listen to several audiobooks on personal development. I spent a lot of time listening to these books while commuting to work, exercising, or doing household chores. However, instead of feeling enriched and transformed by what I was learning, I noticed that after a few weeks, I barely remembered the most important concepts of the books. What was the point of consuming so much content if I couldn't apply what I had learned? That's when I realized that simply listening passively wasn't enough to retain what I was learning. It was at that moment that I decided to implement a small habit that, over time, has allowed me to remember and apply most of the concept from the audiobooks I listened to. This mini habit consists of taking handwritten notes as suggested in the Princeton study. But instead of writing extensive notes, my strategy is to jot down only the key moments, those in which an idea or concept clicks in my mind. When I hear something important, a concept I know I need to remember, or that has the potential to change my perspective, I stop and take note of it in a small notebook that I always carry with me. This small habit is effective for several reasons. First, when you write something by hand, you're forced to process the information more deeply than if you simply listened to or read it. The act of writing activates your motor memory, which helps reinforce the recall. Additionally, by actively taking notes, you are engaging your attention and avoiding distractions, which increases the likelihood that the information will be stored in your long-term memory. For example, a few weeks ago, I was listening to the book Can't Hurt Me by David Goggins while I was at the gym. During a segment of the book, Goggins talks about a method for not giving up, a concept that I found so powerful that I immediately knew I needed to write it down. I paused the audio, took out my notebook, and wrote a brief summary of what I had understood about that method. After writing it down, I went back and listened to that part of the audiobook to make sure I had fully grasped the concept. In that moment, I realized that compared to simply listening passively, I was making much more of an effort to retain the information. This small additional effort of taking notes and pausing the audiobook to reflect on what I've learned is what makes the difference in my ability to remember what I read or hear. Instead of consuming information in a superficial way, I am actively processing and synthesizing what I learned. Furthermore, once I've written down a concept, I try to bring it up in conversations with friends and colleagues who are also interested in personal development. By explaining what I've learned, I not only reinforce my understanding, but also help others better grasp those concepts. The more effort you put into sharing your knowledge, the easier it is for your mind to retain that information. This process of making the effort to take notes and then explain what you've learned is a cycle that strengthens your memory and helps you integrate knowledge more deeply. It's a clear example of how effort can make a concept stick in your memory much more effectively than simply consuming information passively. If you want to improve your ability to remember what you learn, the first step is to recognize the importance of effort. It's not about consuming more information, but about actively engaging with it, taking notes by hand, pausing what you're listening to in order to reflect on it, and then sharing that knowledge with others. These are key steps that can help you retain information more effectively. The effort principle, as demonstrated in the Princeton University research, is a powerful tool for enhancing your learning and making what you learn stay with you in the long term. Therefore, the next time you listen to an audiobook or read an article, make the effort to take notes, reflect on what you've learned, and share with others. That additional effort is what will make the difference between just consuming content and truly integrating it into your life. With that, we come to the end of this video. I hope the information shared about how to take notes effectively and the power of effort in learning has been helpful and inspires you to apply these habits in your daily life. Remember, it's not just about consuming information, but actively processing it, taking notes, reflecting on what you've learned, and most importantly, sharing it with others. If you like this content, don't forget to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and activate the notifications so you don't miss the next videos. Until next time, and may you continue learning with effort and dedication.